Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm here at Apex 2018. I'm joined by three gentlemen to talk a little bit about Smart Factory and the collaboration that's going on in the industry at the moment. I'm joined by Ayo, who's from SEMI, Dan from Jabil, and Marc, who's the new CEO of iNEMI. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. Let's start by just exploring that real element of collaboration that's happening in the industry at the moment, and maybe give some examples of where you guys are all collaborating, but the level of collaboration you're seeing. Ayo, perhaps I can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, of course, being part of SEMI, we know that there's a convergence happening within the industry, and SEMI is kind of answering the bell to our stakeholders of addressing that convergence. And we've been collaborating with Jabil with our Smart Manufacturing initiative that we're heading there at SEMI, which includes the front end and back end part of the industry where that convergence is happening. Because we're seeing a lot of that from the PCBA and the SMT things. We're seeing more collaboration upstream with semiconductors as well. So SEMI is just to answer that bell in order to address that conversion with Smart Manufacturing Initiative, which has a Smart Manufacturing Special Interest Group and a couple of projects as well that are also applying that convergence as well. Dan Gamota, who's part of Jabil, he's held in that Smart Manufacturing Advisory Council, which is steering that group into thought leadership and things like that.
Yeah. Dan, from your point of view, I wonder how you get time to go to work because you're on so many committees these days but it's important for companies like you to be able to bring all these different people together and mobilize them in a way that your customers need and you need as a company. Talk a little bit about how that works with the different groups, the different associations. We're at Apex, obviously IPC are another one of those groups that you work with.
So I do work. I make sure that there is time to complete my work assignments. But I would say that convergence is a very good word that is happening in the industry, but then also we see diversification. If you look at what Jabil manufactures, we're manufacturing everything from a cream cheese tub all the way to a hemodialysis machine. That requires us to appreciate all the different trade associations, understand what the roadmaps are, and then we see a integration of different equipment sets. So the equipment providers may be at an IPC show, or the equipment providers may be at a SEMI show. And so I use this time to participate in events like the iNEMI workshop at the kickoff, because then that gives me very quickly and efficiently exposure to everything that's going on. So the last day and a half I spent time with the iNEMI workshop. I was able to sit with my colleagues, sit with my competitors, understand what the healthcare industry is doing, understand what the automotive industry is doing, and even my competitor Flex. But it's very efficient, and I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see more collaboration as there's this convergence, and then you're going to see the best of the best in terms of best practices being leveraged to achieve this smart manufacturing.
Yeah, and Marc, when you look at it from your point of view, and iNEMI's role in this, you're part of that whole process of developing that technology roadmap. How important is it to get the input from all of the other associations, but equally from the large companies that are playing in this space?
It's a it's a yes and a yes. I put the associations and the companies in the same mix because you have input from everyone. And sort of what Dan said is the collaboration today, and what I'll use the term is, you go back a while when many of the firms were vertically integrated, you had the power to solve the problems yourselves because you were the food chain. You ate what you cooked, and then you gave it to the customer, which was yours yourself also. In today's world, we don't have that. This vertical doesn't exist, and by us working together, we're like a virtual vertical. And if you look at the members of iNEMI, and we include the associations also, we've virtualized the vertical now, and we can actually address the problems we can't solve ourselves. And I like your term. It's the best of the best. I used it with someone else before. It's like the all-star team. We need the EMSs at the table. We need the OSATs at the table. We need the material suppliers at the table. We may not individually work with any one of them, but if you bring them all at the table, you really can solve the problems you couldn't solve before.
Yeah. And Dan and I have talked in the past about this idea of creating these foundations and then these digital building blocks that go on top, these elements that make up a product or make up an ecosystem or make up a solution. Is that something that you as an association would subscribe to in terms of, these are the parts that relate to semiconductor, these are the parts that relate to, I don't know, wearables or other areas you're in. Do you see that kind of ecosystem as being the norm now?
Well, it's beneficial nonetheless. The digital building blocks is beneficial, but I would say kind of what I spoke to before, that it may not be well to separate everything. It's kind of the collaboration encourages the digital building blocks of all facets of the line to work together. And I think that's one thing that SEMI is definitely encouraging, and working with people in we have the Flex Tech group at SEMI that's in wearables and flexible hybrids and things like that. So that the convergence within the whole industry across the line in all electronics, I think is important to have to have an important digital building blocks and have it apply into each and everybody's industry as well.
Yeah. And Dan, when we talk about these digital building blocks, it's really all about layers, isn't it? It's about the layers that you have in terms of manufacturing expertise, engineering expertise, and then all these digital layers on top, and then domain expertise sits on top of there in all the different industries. There are so many different facets to that. How do you keep all of those kind of connected and in control?
Actually, it's a great idea that came out yesterday. I mentioned that during the last 4 months, we've had different providers of artificial intelligence algorithms. And what we find is that, in general, all of them have just been birthed. They're living, but they haven't grown. They haven't realized or learned expertise around my industry, or maybe the semiconductor industry, or maybe around water quality, water purification. I think that what we're going to see is that we need to understand how these AI algorithms learn, how they evolve over the time. And the one thing that we were suggesting yesterday is that maybe we have a diverse group that goes on a field trip. So maybe iNEMI and some of the people that were sitting at our work table yesterday, we go to a shop that already has deployed AI and see what AI was appropriate for their industry. We're not sure yet what AI is appropriate for us, but we do know that a lot of companies have been coming to us offering an AI solution. What we need to do is give them the appropriate data set and then see how the different AI systems, what the actual output is. So that, I think that's the approach that we're going to have, is a lot of experimentation, a lot of proof of concepts, but also then going back and saying, how is this proof of concept, how did this experiment relate to this other experiment?
Yeah, and Marc, when you look at iNEMI's roadmaps and all the work iNEMI does, that's multiple industries. Do you feel that part of your role is to help one industry understand what they can glean in terms of benefit from another industry?
Absolutely. There's many aspects of the work, whether it's done in iNEMI or any technology, that cuts across all the industries. There might be particulars that might be unique to an implantable versus something that's on a remote radio head sitting up there, which is valid. It's totally valid. But there is common. And where we can extract the common elements, we try to work together. There are projects where we have people working in multiple industries. We know we have the automotive guys working with the telecom guys who are working with the XYZ guys. And to be truthful, it could be the XY gals also. But we've got to extract that. And the uniqueness, though, what we can do is we can also leverage the drilling down when you have that unique element. Say it is a medical or it is an automotive. And that's, again, it comes down to collaboration and having the right people at the table. And each time getting the right people at the table. And we're going to see more collaboration. I think the industry's understanding that we can't solve things alone. And actually, I'll go out on a limb, it could actually hurt the industry solving things solve it on their own. There's clearly stuff you got to do on your own, don't get me wrong. And from an IP perspective, that's got to happen because a lot of innovation is going to occur there. But there's a heck of a lot of innovation we can do with collaboration for the right stuff.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that collaboration is unusual. You mentioned earlier that collaboration is required partly because we don't have these very vertically integrated companies, but I think it's also because of the massively connected nature of the business model now. I mean, for example, in the semiconductor industry, through what you're doing, all the way through to the customer, the consumer, there's a digital thread that runs through all that. That's really important. From your point of view, is that digital nature of our business, that digital transformation, driving a collaboration at a level we've never seen before?
Most definitely, and I think that you mentioned an important aspect, the digital thread. I think it's important to have that connection with the digital thread through all facets of the industry, whether it be people from the material side, of course, the people even from the PCBA, the back end parts of the industry, and everywhere else in between. That digital thread, in terms of sharing data information more efficiently and faster, is going to benefit everyone across the supply chain. And once you have that, type of connection between all industries, the standardization across the industry is going to be great. It's going to make people across the supply chain a lot happier. So I think you're right that the digital thread aspect of the supply chain is becoming more and more prominent.
Yeah, and Dan, you've worked for a long time on the digitization of Jabil internally, but also of helping your customers with that transformation. So for you, the building blocks with the digital thread, it's given them lots of benefit, like speed to market, visibility, supply chain risk mitigation, all those things. That's really important to what you're doing, yeah?
It is very important to us because we see that, we're not saying that overnight we're going to go from a physical world to a virtual world, but as you can imagine, if in the present day we have multiple design validation tests, multiple engineering validation tests, and multiple product validation tests, that's a significant investment both in people, resources, and materials. If we can offload some of that and do it in the virtual world and go into those testing later knowing that we have a 99% chance of success, you can imagine the speed. We've actually reduced the speed, we've reduced the risk. The one thing I keep on hearing about is collaboration, and when you were mentioning something, I think that it's going to be an alphabet soup of acronyms of all the different groups. Yesterday I was surprised.
Yeah.
I'm used to, Materials Research Society, American Chemical Society, American Physical Society. Yesterday we heard that there's going to be a presentation or a workshop in the American Chemical Society on two-way communication. Who would have thought? Typically you think about materials, you think about the coefficient of thermal expansion. But no, these societies realize that the ability to communicate, to extract the data, to be able to do things in the virtual world is going to be just as important as doing a physical test. So I think that we're going to see, whether it's SEMI, iNEMI, TPCA, JPCA, JARA, I think you're going to see much more collaboration because it's all going to be woven together. It's going to be a nice fabric of communities.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The last point to you, Marc, when you look at that, it's very encouraging to see this new level of collaboration. People aren't ring fencing what they're doing. They're not kind of saying, this is my territory, stay out of it. That's good news for everybody, and it's good news particularly for an association like iNEMI, where you have been across so many industries. Does that encourage you moving forward? It's not just something that people have had to do because of circumstance?
Oh, absolutely. And I speaking for myself, as you said, I'm new. I'm 5 weeks on the job, but I came out of 38, I say almost 40, but that sounds too old. I say 38 years in the telecom industry at Bell Labs, and we were members for exactly the reason you said, because the collaboration, it wasn't just to be a fly on the wall and to hear what other people are doing. It's knowing we can collaborate, and the collaboration, correctly, is becoming more accepted by some that didn't previously, buy into collaboration. And I just see so many opportunities. So the answer to your question, I am excited.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about that as an opportunity, and actually expanding the areas of collaboration.
Yeah, and it's a strange world, but it seems what goes around comes around. The more you put in, the more you get out. It's a wonderful thing. Gentlemen, thanks very much for your time, and thank you for talking to me.
Thank you.